This is LING 270, Language, Technology, and Society, Module 4, Printing. In this lesson, we'll talk about the effects of the printing press on religion. So when I was talking about the Gutenberg's development of the printing press, I mentioned that one of his major motivations was the printing of indulgences. So an indulgence was a kind of written document that was made by the Catholic Church in, at least in the 1400s, that forgives someone on a sin. And this is something that would require a payment to get this kind of document. And because it required this payment, it became increasingly corrupt in the 15th century. To kind of illustrate this, in the year 1516, the monk Johann Tetzel went around Europe advocating for indulgences. And these indulgences were used to generate funds to rebuild the very lavish St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican. One of the things he was quoted as saying was that as soon as the coin in the copper rings, the soul from purgatory springs. So by this, he means that once, if you buy one of these indulgences, then we will guarantee that you will be absolved from your sins and you will not go to purgatory. So we can see that you know he's how corrupt this practice is, where he's offering you know to free them from religious punishment, but you know, to do that to extract money to build a very lavish church like this. And this was something that attracted the ire from Martin Luther. So he, and he very famously developed a set of protestations against the Catholic Church for practices like this in a document called the 95 Theses. Well, one thing that Luther was quoted as saying was, "Why does the Pope, whose wealth today is greater than the richest Crassus, build the Basilica of St. Peter with the money of poor believers rather than with his own money?" So here you can see that Luther is beginning to protest against this kind of corrupt practice. So Luther's 95 Theses protested against these kinds of abuses from the Pope and wealthy members of the Catholic Church. And he nailed these 95 Theses on the doors of the Wittenberg churches in 1517. So this was a common practice that was used to spread information, at least at the time. And it wasn't also nailed to this location in Wittenberg. It was also published and reproduced in multiple languages as well. So the main language of religion at the time was Latin, but it was also translated into German, so it could be read by the lay people as well. So this, a much wider audience could hear about the protest as well, not just people who were educated and who were able to speak Latin. So this was done to expand the reach of these theses. And now once this had happened, once Gutenberg had made these theses public, he started to get in hot water with the Catholic Church. And in particular, he got into a conflict with Johann Tetzel, and the disputes were widely publicized and distributed. So the printing press played a very major role in these kinds of religious arguments at the time. The church had demanded that Luther recanted his writings to withdraw his protest, but he refused, and he was famously excommunicated from the Catholic Church in 1520. And the results of this whole process of these protestations was hugely significant, religiously and also politically in Europe. So the 95, and this happened in large part because the printing press enabled the 95 Theses to spread very, very rapidly. So within 2 weeks of writing the 95 Theses and publishing them, they had been spread all throughout Germany. Only after I believe 2 years, it had spread to other countries in Europe as well, to England, France, and Italy too. 300,000 copies of these theses were printed, one of which you can see in the picture here. Now this might seem small today, but that was a huge amount of copies at the time. Yeah, to give you an idea, between 1500 and 1530, about 1/5 of printed materials were texts related to Protestantism and to Lutheran texts. So the printing press was a very major motive for this kind of for this process. And from 1518 to 1524, we also see that there was a large increase in printed material in general. So this was the dates are conspicuous because this was right after the 95 Theses were published. So we see a 7-fold increase in the amount of printing. And of course, the effects of Protestantism are fairly well known. Protestant movements sprang up all throughout Europe, in Germany, Scandinavia, and it led the Church of England to break off. And it became the source of a great amount of religious and political upheavals, which even continue to this day. So this is the incredible power that this kind of movement has had. So this, and it's important to remember that this kind of development was possible because of the recent development of the printing press that enabled these kind of religious arguments and protestations to occur, which had not happened before because such a tight control of knowledge and literature was controlled by scribes and by the Catholic Church, and also by royal courts as well. So this really illustrates the power of the printing press here.